everyone, and welcome to Read This Now, the weekly webcast where Brad Gustafson and I share two books that we love and that we think you should read. When, Brad?
Read them right now, people. The second the Zoom meeting is over.
That's right. Read them right now. How are you doing, my friend?
Things are good, Jen. Getting into the flow of distance learning here, and there's just reading my way through life here.
I know, right? I've had a lot of people ask me if all of this has created more time to read. And it's interesting. I don't feel that way as if I've had more time to read at all. I feel kind of busier than ever in some ways. But also, I've talked to a lot of people who have discussed the idea that they're struggling to read right now, like just having the focus, being able to concentrate on a book. And I find that my reading habits have changed during this new reality right now too, in so much as I'm reading different kinds of books than I normally would because I can't deal with any more really serious topics. What about you?
I'm just looking for really amazing books, which is why I like to connect with you and talk to you. I started a couple that just didn't capture me, and I'm not super picky, but I paused them or set them aside, and then my daughter must have been destiny because she's like, you've got to read this. So I've started Save Me a Seat. Is that by Weeks? Is that the last name of the author?
I think so, yes. Okay. I haven't read it.
That's not my book for this week, but it's always nice to have people in your life to recommend books, put it that way.
Yes, I love it. And when your kids do it, I imagine that's even more special.
Right. How could I say no to that?
Exactly. I feel the same way about my students. When a student says to me, oh my gosh, Miss Lagarde, you have got to read this. It goes to the top of my pile, right away. And they never steer me wrong.
That's great. Yep.
So what do you have to share with us this week?
I got a good one. I have, I would say, kind of a middle grade novel written by a principal friend of mine. And I have a prop this week and then a quick story. Yeah. So my prop is, I don't know if you can see this. You see the mixtape?
Yes.
Never forget. I got to go really get into this book talk here.
I love it.
Never forget the mixtape.
And
the reason I'm sharing a mixtape t-shirt with you is a mixtape is actually a big part of this story. I'll get to the book in just a second. I was also going to share for our staff meeting kickoff, which seems like it was about 10 years ago, but it was actually just several months ago. But when we kicked things off this year, we had a back to the 80s theme and some breakout EDU boxes and some principal in the room dressed up in 80s garb, and we had fun. So to come across a book that the character has an affinity for music and mixtapes and things, you can imagine I was just totally gelling, right? You were all in. Yep. So the character has kind of a cool name that rolls off the tongue. It reminds me a little bit of like a Judy Blume book, or I don't want to say Junie B. Jones, but the main character's name is Kippalee Ann Kerrigan. Kippalee Ann Kerrigan, but throughout the book she's just referred to as Kip. That obviously rolls off the tongue a teeny bit easier. The book is called The Serendipity Journal. It's written from the perspective where the kiddo, Kip, is interacting with her teacher, Mrs. Holiday, throughout the book, and they're just exchanging journal entries and connecting that way.
How fun.
Long story short, the reason I think you should read this book right now, aside from the mixtape, and the fact that it actually, in the bonus section, contains a list of all the amazing music that's referred to in the book, very inspiring stuff that I would actually listen to, too. Kip's dad moved, or got a new job, so Kip, no fault of her own, had to go to a new school, and we can all imagine, and some of us have lived, how challenging that can be. And to make matters worse, she encounters somebody, a classmate who is less than friendly. That's a euphemism. And just her process of connecting with her teacher and doing this journal and developing this deep relationship back and forth. It just feels so cool to be able to like peer in and read the journal entries and see the relationship grow. I also, kind of a nuanced thing that I think educators will also like, in addition to kids loving this one, but our school does some restitution stuff, so basic needs stuff. And there's a little bit of that, not in a preachy, teachy way, but it's embedded into this where I think a lot of our teachers will love this because it actually underpins and represents our school values, just about trying to meet our needs in an up and positive way and having the empathy to help other students and staff meet their needs in a professional way. So that was just the added bonus, not necessarily a selling point, but there aren't many books well written that actually have that layer that's kind of invisible in it. I think that was the main thing I wanted to say. I did have the chance to pre-read this, and Allyson, her writing process, which would be another reason I think people would be interested, she asked for a lot of feedback before and while this book was being written, like in sharing manuscripts with kiddos, getting their feedback, what's working, what's not. And I had the chance to see an earlier draft. So I'm going to read. This isn't quite a book talk, Jen, but it's my endorsement. So I'm going to use my official voice. This is technically, right? With perfectly flawed characters, that almost sounds professional. With perfectly flawed characters and challenges people of all ages will relate to, Allyson Apsey has created one of those rare tales students and teachers will fall in love with together. So for all those reasons, the Serendipity Journal is the book you should read, people. Not tomorrow, not next week, right now, or as soon as you can get your hands on it.
I got to say something now. I haven't read that book, but I want you to hold up the cover again.
Yep.
Okay. If by any chance, some miracle out there, one of my former students is watching this, they will recognize that composition notebook style as their journals for my class, because I used to have kids journal in my classes, my middle school kids, and we would have those same conversations back and forth that you're talking about. And I always felt like there were some kids, if it weren't for those journals, I would never have gotten to really know, because they wouldn't have spoken in class. The opportunity to just have a meaningful conversation wouldn't have arisen when you have 300 kids in the course of a school year. And that journaling was such a profound thing for me. Just seeing that cover with the picture taped on the front and the stickers, and it looks like the composition notebooks. Oh my gosh, that just touches my heart, just the cover alone. So I'm excited you shared that.
It has that authentic feel too. It just feels authentic is such a great word for it. And Kip is someone you authentically are cheering for, because she's this nostalgic kid, loves music, has some things that are hard for her, and then also she's kind of clumsy and it's like, oh, Kip, it's like the kiddos at school you might see who just things don't necessarily always go their way, but your heart, you can connect to them on so many levels and different levels. You're just cheering for them. So.
Oh, yay. Well, that sounds like a great one. I'm excited to add it to my list. And that's so funny you mentioned about mixtapes. I've been thinking about them a lot lately, so that's great.
Nice.
I know, right? Like our brains, we're always connected this way, Brad. That being said, the book I want to share this week is different from a lot of the other books I've shared, in so much as that it is nonfiction that's geared more towards elementary school kids. I'm not sure if I've ever shared an elementary aged and probably middle school age nonfiction book here before. It's not my typical genre, but I found myself drawn to this book because, I don't know, last week I had the opportunity to talk about books with John Shu on his Book Joy live webcast, and one of the books he shared really intrigued me. It was called 50 Odd Couples, Unlikely it's the true stories about unlikely animal friendships. Okay. And I don't know if you've ever seen these like internet videos where, a squirrel is best friends with a mountain lion or something like that. But those videos go viral because they're just amazing. Like, they're unlikely, they're incredible, but also they touch and warm your heart. And I felt like right now, this was the book my heart needed, was an entire book filled with nothing but those stories. I want to read a little bit from the beginning, since you read your own endorsement from that book, which I thought was great and meta. I want to just read the opening paragraph to this book, and then I want to share a couple of these stories because they're amazing. Friends come in all shapes and sizes, and that's especially true for these 50 unlikely animal pairs, from giant horses to tiny squirrels and fluffy ducks to fuzzy pigs. The animals in this book know that sometimes you can find a best friend in the most unexpected ways. After all, it doesn't matter what your friends look like. The most important part of any friendship is having fun together. And then it just goes on. And there's so many things to love about this book, Brad. My animal loving heart loved it. My teacher heart loved it. My librarian heart loved it. I was drawn immediately to this story about Charlotte and Wallace, which as a Schnauzer owner, of course, I had to get excited about this one. And his best friend Wallace, who is a guinea pig. And then there's other great stories. This is Zach and his best friend, a squirrel. And then I wanted to show this other quick one about Bubbles and Seamus, who are best friends, they're a pig and a lamb. One of the great things about this book is that every single chapter has a map pin. You can see the little pin, and it tells you where these folks are located. And I kept thinking about how fun it would be to have kids map these on a map, either a physical map or something like Google Maps. And then the other aspect of this book that I just absolutely loved occurred at the end. And if I were a teacher, my one complaint about this book is I wish this was at the beginning instead of at the end. But if I were a teacher or a librarian, I would point kids to this immediately. At the end, there's a section called Which Story Should You Read? And it takes all of the chapters and breaks them down into the types of animals that are involved. Do you want to read about a dog? Check out these stories. Do you want to read about a farm animal? Check out these stories. It's so funny and fun and uplifting. And kids who like stories about animals, books about animals, or those like Guinness Book of World Record books, my librarian friends know you can't keep those books on the shelf whatsoever. They will love this book. And right now, when we all need a distraction from the real world, I just can't think of a better choice than 50 Odd Couples.
Jen, that is such a fun and good book talk. And since I had my prop, my mixtape shirt, I have a prop for you in your book. And I promise we didn't have this planned, but are you ready? Check out this animal buddy. Can you see her little porcupine toy?
Yes, we sure can.
Isn't that adorable?
I love it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. It was my excuse to get the dog on camera.
Brad and I, people watching this show may not always know, might not know this, but Brad and I have a running joke about my dogs constantly barking during our program, during our recording, because they're quiet the rest of the day. And the minute they know Brad Gustafson is on the line, they bark. They just want to be a part of it so bad. So I'm excited that your dog got to be the star this week. I love it.
She slept through her debut.
That's okay. That's all right. I like the way she rolls.
Cool. That was so awesome. It's fun to hear you book talk kind of a different genre. I was really vibing. I vibe with all your book talks, but I could picture recommending that to tons of kids at our school.
Yes. You know, Donalyn Miller and I chat about books a lot. That was my opportunity to name drop Donalyn Miller. But she talks about books that
hey, Jen, Donalyn's been at our school. I just want to share the name dropping.
Okay, well, this is going to make people barf, but I've been to Donalyn's house. So.
Oh my gosh. All right. You win the internet. Go ahead. I know better than to compete with you after I've lost like 5 different seasons of the 30-second book talk.
Hey, speaking of 30-second book talk, we got an announcement for that next week, don't we?
We sure do. Next week, we are, it's going to be amazing.
I know, I can't wait. But listen, let me get back to my Donalyn story just quickly before we wrap this up. Donalyn talks about how there are some books that she knows she can recommend to 100 kids, and they will all love it. And then there's some books that she only can think of 1 or 2 kids that she could recommend it to, but she knows that for those 1 or 2 kids, it's going to be their favorite book ever. I feel like this book I could recommend to 10,000 kids and they would absolutely love it. So I'm excited to share it this week. And, you know, I hope that lots of folks are able to get their hands on it. If not now, then when school starts back up and when things are turning to normal and, you know, we're all thinking about books more than we're thinking about anything else. But that being said, if folks would like to watch more of these videos or check out the rest of the books that we've recommended, where can they go, Brad?
bit.ly/read_this_now. And I just have to say, Jen, talking about books, getting great recommendations from you that I can also share with our students, and just these conversations. Highlight of the week. And this week did not disappoint. That was good. Thank
Right
you.
back at you, my friend. Mwah. Everyone
We'll
have a
see ya.
great week. Happy reading. We love you.